The Hall of Fame is essentially when we honor a person who really stands out in the vegan movement. It could be nationwide, it could be worldwide, and as you all know, we keep the name a secret until the ceremony. Not even the person knows. Who wants to know who it is? Can't say it yet, because first what we want to do is we want to go through the list of all the past Hall of Famers. And we do that certainly to honor all these people, but also just to underscore the quality of this body of people that tonight's inductee is going to join. So here are the names of our past Hall of Famers. Jay and Freya Dinshaw, Helen and Scott Nearing, Michael Clapper, Dr. Michael Clapper, I think he's here still, I think. George Eisman, and Paul Obis, Mahatma Gandhi, Alex Hershaft, Muriel Kalora Gold, Patricia Lambert, Howard Lyman, Charles Stoller and Deborah Wasserman, Brian and Sharon Graf, founders of this organization and this conference, Richard Schwartz, T. Colin Campbell, Brenda Davis, I miss her, she used to come here a lot. Joe Stepanek, oh my God, Vegan Vittles, the Uncheesed Cookbook. Joe Connolly and Colleen Holland, I think Joe is here, right? Joe? There he is. Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn and Dr. Barnard, who's here, there he is. Jenny Stein and James Levesque, Ray Sikora, ooh. John Pierre, John I think is here. Hans Deal, Chef Miyoko Schinner, Chef Mark Reinfeld, our chef. Chef AJ, Dr. Greger, Dr. Williams, Victoria Moran, and Dr. Milton Mills, last year's inductee. We're very close here. All right, are you ready? Here we go. This year's Hall of Fame recipient is not a person. It is a couple, a dynamic duo, a vegan power couple, a husband and wife. Let's just do this, right? Let's just do this. Carol and Ted Barnett.
Music is a world within itself, with a language we all understand, with an equal opportunity for all to sing, dance, and clap their hands. But just because a record has a groove, don't make it in the groove. But you can tell right away it's Dr. A when the people start to move. They can feel it all over. They can feel it all over people. They can feel it all over. They can feel it all over people. Go!
Okay, all right. I'm just so happy that everybody knows now and we don't have to keep it a secret any longer. That's the only bad part about it. Can relax. And now we are going to tell a little story of Ted and Carol Barnett so that you will all realize why they are being inducted into the NAVS Hall of Fame. Here we go. Carol He Barnett grew up in Elmira, New York. She was the youngest of 5 kids, and she was born so close to Christmas that one of her brothers wanted to name her Noel. The family settled on Carol, which is apropos, because Christmas Carol, Carol really likes to sing, and she sang in church as a kid, and she went on to become quite the musical theater star in high school and college, playing the lead in Man of La Mancha, No Strings, Carousel, and more. She graduated from Notre Dame High School as valedictorian, and then she graduated college from St. Bonaventure University as valedictorian. Okay, Carol, valedictorian twice. She went on to earn a PhD in English language and literature at Yale University, and then she taught English for a few years at the University of Alabama in Birmingham, and then returned to Yale for a degree in law. And now Ted. He grew up on the Connecticut shore in the town of Westport, where he hiked and fished and dug for clams and sailed on his catamaran. And like Carol, he was also the youngest child in his family. And there's also an interesting fact about his name. He was apparently born quite a few years after his sister and brother, so by the time he came around, Ted's parents were very relaxed parents. So much so that they allowed his siblings to name him, and his brother and sister chose the name Ted, not Theodore, just Ted. Ted's dad and grandfather were also doctors, just like Ted, and his father was really into birding and running, just like Ted, so there's a lot of intergenerational connection there. He graduated from Yale University in 1976 with a BS in bio, and then went to Tufts Medical School where he earned his MD in 1980. Ted did his medical residency at Framingham Union Hospital, and guess what happened when he was there? Something very special happened. Anybody? Yep, he and Carol met. It was 1981, and she had just started law school at Yale, and you know what happened next, right? They did not stay together. But 4 years later, they reconnected, and this time it took, and they got married. And they moved into a farmhouse in Rochester, New York, and Ted joined a radiology practice, and Carol stopped working as a lawyer to focus on what would become the beginning of their family. Now, 2 years into their marriage, Carol came across a black and white trifold about downed cows, and she became vegetarian pretty much on the spot. And then 2 years after that, Ted noticed this book in a bookstore, Dr. Dean Ornish's program for reversing heart disease. It was 1990, and Ted at the time was chief of radiology at Canandaigua's Thompson Hospital. And the book caught his eye because his father happened to be showing the beginning signs of vascular disease. Well, Ted read the book, and he learned that a very low-fat, quasi-whole foods, plant-based diet was being used to treat heart disease, along with moderate exercise, stress reduction, and not smoking. And he learned that this approach had a name, lifestyle medicine, and he was fascinated because here was a randomized controlled trial showing that you could actually clear up arteries with lifestyle changes. And this was after he'd been taught in medical school that plaque is like concrete, not going anywhere. So after reading the book, Ted believed that his father's vascular disease just might be reversible. Well, Ted's parents didn't want to change their diets, and sadly, his dad died a few years later. But Ted's interest in a plant-based diet was piqued. So he did more research, and he came to the conclusion that not only is a plant-based diet safe, but it's actually safer than the standard American diet, especially if it's based on whole foods and low in fat and sodium, like the Ornish diet. He also came to the conclusion that adopting a plant-based diet would be the very best thing that he could do for the planet, something that had long been a priority for him as he'd been into the preservation of nature for quite some time by then. Now remember, Carol had already been vegetarian for 2 years at this point, but now, with all their newfound knowledge, they were both ready to go vegan, and they wanted to do it for all the reasons: compassion for other species, care for the environment, care for their health. But it wasn't just their health that they were thinking about, because by now they had a toddler and a baby, Rebecca and Elizabeth, and they viewed this upcoming dietary change as a family experiment. So, on January 1st, 1991, Carol and Ted and Rebecca and Elizabeth went vegan. And when their son Nate was born a year later, he was officially vegan since birth. So here you are 35 years later, and your kids basically grew up here. So I guess the experiment went pretty well. And this brings us to 1995. It was a big year for the Barnetts. First of all, it was their first Summerfest. Rebecca was 8, Elizabeth was 6, Nathaniel was 3. So they hung out in the Children's Center with the other vegan kids, including mine, I'm pretty sure, while Carol and Ted attended classes and met many of the leading lights of the vegan movement, Dr. Barnard, Dr. Clapper, Dr. Esselstyn, Howard Lyman, Dr. Greger. Carol and Ted say that that first Summerfest was like a vegan utopia and that it changed them forever. My God, I agree. Anybody feel that? It just changes you forever. Woo! And they say that this is the feeling that they work to emulate at RAVS meetings. And what are RAVS meetings, you might ask? RAVS is the Rochester Area Vegan Society, founded by Stan and Rhoda Sapon, who passed the leadership to Ted and Carol in 1995. That was 31 years ago. That's almost as long as they've been vegan. And ever since then, Carol and Ted have been the heartbeat of RAVS, bringing in speakers and hosting dinners and doing outreach, organizing events, the works. While putting together this presentation, I wondered just how many Summerfest people have presented at RAVS. So I did a little research, and here are some names that I came up with. Michael Clapper, Neil Barnard, Caldwell Esselstyn, Milton Mills, Howard Lyman, Michael Greger, Amy Hamlin, Ray Sikora, T. Colin Campbell, George Eisman, Brenda Davis, Serena Farb, Roberta Schiff, Will Tuttle. And then there was this name of this supposedly Summerfest person I didn't know, Mary Beth Abrams. Who the heck is that? A lot of times, the RAV speakers stay over in Carol and Ted's farmhouse instead of going to a hotel. And they all go out to local vegan restaurants with other RAV's board members, so it becomes this kind of great, big, giant, wonderful experience. And just a little side note here, the Rochester Veg Fest was conceived of some people who are not related to RAVs, but from the very first fest back in 2017, the Rochester Veg Fest has been presented jointly by Animal Rights Rochester and RAVs. And RAVS has a booth there every year, and Carol's been on the Rochester Veg Fest Planning Committee since its inception. Okay, so circling back to that first Summerfest in 1995, when Ted got home, he was bursting with enthusiasm. And I don't know what that would feel like, right? Has anybody had that feeling like when you left your first Summerfest, you're like bursting with enthusiasm? You know what I mean, right? Well, when Ted got home, he was bursting with so much enthusiasm that he decided to become a speaker. And so just a short time later, he started giving a talk called How Not to Prevent Disease, a history of U.S. dietary recommendations. And over the years, that presentation grew into a 6-week course called Plant-Based Diet, Eating for Happiness and Health, in which healthcare professionals could personally test out a whole foods plant-based diet and experience the health improvements as a means to help their patients do the same. Carol was intricately involved in the course with curricula creation and recipe development and providing whole foods plant-based food samples for every class. Then that evolved into CHIP, the Complete Health Improvement Program, originally founded by the renowned Dr. Hans Diehl, also an NAVS Hall of Famer. CHIP is an intensive 12-week research-tested lifestyle medicine intervention that helps prevent and reverse heart disease and type 2 diabetes and hypertension and other chronic lifestyle-related diseases. It's based on a whole foods plant-based diet with no refined sugars or added fats, and includes physical activity and stress management and education on sleep and other lifestyle habits. Ted did this because under the Affordable Care Act guidelines, insurance companies were now required by law to cover preventative programs that had good evidence of their effectiveness. And the CHIP program was exactly that. It had plenty of data showing its effectiveness, and it was highly scalable. It was not inexpensive, but it appeared as though insurance would cover the cost. So, Carol and Ted ran CHIP from 2015 to 2022, and several hundred patients completed it with phenomenal results. But alas, insurance never paid a single dollar. So, because of the high cost of running it and the decision that 12 weeks was just a little bit too much of a commitment for a lot of people to do, they decided to go back to the drawing board and create a brand new course that would be inexpensive to run and would last just 2 weeks. And at the same time, they created the nonprofit Rochester Lifestyle Medicine Institute. And that 2-week course, it's a goodie. And you've probably heard about it already from other speakers and from Dr. Barnett, and it's called Jumpstart. Jumpstart is a guided 15-day program for a whole foods plant-based diet, and it's easy, accessible, and inexpensive. It's a vegan diet that's free of oil and sugar and processed foods, and it's very low in fat and sodium. It's a style of eating that makes people feel really good, really fast, and gets them really good blood work in just 2 weeks. That's a lot of really goods, but that's really the best way to say it. And Jumpstart attracts people with type 2 diabetes and hypertension and high cholesterol, people who want to reverse their disease and get off their meds. It's also for people who are on GLP-1 weight loss drugs, because even though they're losing weight because of the drugs, they still have to learn how to eat in order to keep the weight off. And then there's vegan people who do Jumpstart, because it's kind of like a food cleanse. I'm one of those people that did that. I'm sure you guys, maybe people who went to our class the other day may have heard my story, and you know what happens when the vegans take Jumpstart? They have a similar experience as the other people, which is basically the feeling of, oh my God, I feel so good. My cholesterol went down. I lost a few pounds. And I got to say, when I was about 55, my cholesterol started to creep up a little bit. A few extra pounds came on. When I did Jumpstart, everything just went back to where it was supposed to be. So what happens during Jumpstart is that participants get to experience the best that their body can do. And they learn that it's not just about genetics or age or whatever, after all. And a big part of Jumpstart is getting lab testing on the first day and on the last day. And results consistently show that people lose an average of 7 pounds and have about a 20-point drop in systolic blood pressure and a drop in total cholesterol of about 63 points. That's a lot. I saw this happen with my coworker. He was a meat eater and his cholesterol went from 220 down to 140 in the 2-week period. Pretty amazing. There's a whole lot more to this slide. Ted addresses it in his talks. I'll let him do that. But aside from the numbers, people say they feel better. They have more energy. They sleep better, less aches and pains. And a lot of people say they actually fall in love with the way that they feel. Now, for the first 2 years of Jumpstart, Ted and Carol ran it out of Ted's medical office. And they brought in about 20 or 30 people a month. Not bad. But when COVID hit, they had to do something different. So they switched quickly to Zoom. And you know what happened? The whole program exploded in a good way. It went worldwide. Now, just a few more words on Jumpstart. It's a tool for healthcare professionals because it enables them to outsource structured lifestyle education that's medically aligned. It's got a curriculum, accountability, measurable outcomes, so the doctor doesn't even have to attempt to do comprehensive nutrition counseling. And here's something great. A growing number of doctors now prescribe Jumpstart to their patients. And as you can imagine, doctors who have personally experienced the course are more likely to recommend it, or I should say they're more likely to prescribe it. And that's why RLMI, the Rochester Lifestyle Medicine Institute, puts so much focus on getting health practitioners to take the course. It's what they call a cycle of change in the healthcare system. And it goes something like this. Doctors take the course, they experience the benefits and make personal changes, they counsel their patients about nutrition, they send their patients to Jumpstart, the patients do really great, so the doctor refers more patients to it, and then those patients do so great that the doctor tells other doctors about it, and then those doctors take Jumpstart, and it goes around and around and around. Jumpstart has been given over 75 times to more than 2,700 people in 49 states and in 12 countries, and Ted and Carol have attended almost every single session. I should be calling you Dr. Barnett, but I just think of you as dead. I'm so sorry, Dr. Barnett. And RLMI has other programs too, like Lifestyle Medicine Grand Rounds, where a panel of health experts discuss actual patient cases from a lifestyle perspective. I know most of you are in here today at this afternoon's plenary. Panelists Dr. Barnard and Dr. Greger and Dr. Clapper and Dr. Mills. I mean, where else are you going to see that but the Vegan Summerfest, right? Woo. With Grand Rounds, doctors and other medical professionals get a very real understanding of the application and benefits of a whole foods plant-based diet. Another RLMI program is the LIFT project. This is a 10-week program that covers all the lifestyle medicine pillars: whole foods plant-based diet, physical activity, restorative sleep, stress management, social connection, avoiding tobacco. It's perfect for people who want to learn about lifestyle medicine but aren't quite ready to completely change their diet. And there's an alumni program to help folks remain supported and engaged. And then there's something called Beyond Jumpstart, which is a series of 6 weekly sessions specifically designed to support Jumpstart graduates. And there's an online community where people can communicate with each other and with lifestyle medicine experts. It's got discussion spaces and Ask Me Anything sessions and support group sessions and links to past grand rounds and recipes, of course. And people can even sign up for one-on-one virtual appointments with certified health coaches right on the site. Here's something really interesting. RLMI, Rochester Lifestyle Medicine Institute, it's an empirically based organization, which means that it's grounded in direct observation. Its claims and method can be tested, measured. Everything is scientifically verified. And of course, its focus is on arresting or reversing chronic disease. But its programs do refer to the ethical and environmental reasons for veganism in a kind and respectful way. And the RLMI team consistently finds that most people are open to considering these reasons once they're already eating plant-based. So let me restate that. RLMI has found that once people are already eating plant-based, they're much more open to thinking about the ethical and environmental implications of how they eat. And as most of us know here, ethical and environmental issues are a very strong motivator when it comes to being vegan, right? So let's just say that there's a Jumpstart participant who overcame major health issues by being plant-based. Well, Ted and Carol know that the odds of this person continuing to eat this way for the rest of their life dramatically increase if these people also understand the ethical and environmental implications of eating animal products. Understanding these other issues increases the odds of these people living a longer, healthier life, and that's RLMI's goal. And that is why part of RLMI's mission is to crosswalk plant-based eaters to become confirmed vegans. I think we should clap at that. RLMI has a paid staff poised to continue its mission into the future, thanks to some very generous donors. But Ted and Carol are full-time volunteers, as they've always been, and the two of them continue to help steer and expand the organization into the future. For example, RLMI now partners with Dr. Michael Clapper in offering a master class in plant-based nutrition. It's for health clinicians with a focus on medical students and residents and interns who can earn up to 34 CME credits by taking the course. And as Dr. Clapper mentioned in his talk last night, the 15-day Jumpstart course is offered for free to all these master class participants. And there's something else really big from RLMI that I want to tell you about, but first I have to tell you about the problem that it solves. Let's say there's a researcher from some university hospital out somewhere who demonstrates scientifically that a whole foods plant-based diet will help someone with a very unique form of arthritis. And you're a doctor, let's say, out there in the Midwest somewhere who reads this research paper, and you've actually got a patient who's got that type of arthritis who could benefit from this. That's great, right? Well, there's a problem, because you, as the doctor, have no idea how to show your patient how to do the actual diet that was used in the study, because the dietary protocol of that study was very specific to that study. It was probably created by a team of dietitians, and it might be very regimented, like a certain number of ounces of oatmeal on Monday, and whole grain toast on Tuesday, and a salad of baked tofu on Wednesday, and some special shake on Thursday, and blah, 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 blah. It was a very specific meal plan that could be hard to access and probably even harder to implement because of its specificity, right? Well, the solution to this problem is having a uniform protocol for researchers to use if they want to do a study on the health effects of a plant-based diet. And that uniform protocol could be Jumpstart, because it's simple and it's reproducible and it allows for unlimited variance, which is how the whole real world works, right? People don't live on a meal plan. Everybody has different taste buds. Some people love to cook, other people just want quick and easy. Jumpstart works for everybody, regardless of lifestyle, taste buds, everything. So, Carol and Ted and the RLMI folks are now reaching out to researchers who are planning to test out theories about a whole foods plant-based diet with the goal of partnering with these researchers by using Jumpstart as the protocol. Because if lifestyle medicine research is done with a uniform protocol, it will be so much easier for the medical community to help their patients who can benefit from the research. Doctors will actually be able to say, I read the research, here's the dietary protocol, and you can sign up for it right here on this website right now. And the longest that any patient has to wait to get started is 30 days, because RLMI runs a new group every single month. Oh, wait, they don't even have to wait 30 days anymore, because now Jumpstart is also offered on demand. Since they started this initiative, there's already been a randomized controlled trial using the Jumpstart protocol on patients with chronic kidney disease. And this is a very big deal, because usually kidney doctors tell their patients to eat a low potassium diet because they're concerned that their kidneys might not be able to process the potassium adequately. But the foods that have the most potassium are plant-based. So basically, doctors are telling their kidney disease patients to avoid eating most plant-based foods, even though studies show that eating plant-based reduces the risk of kidney failure. So this study, using Jumpstart, was specifically done to assess the safety of a plant-based diet in patients with stages 3 and 4 kidney disease, chronic kidney disease. And it found that not only did the experimental group not have increased potassium levels, but that they lost an average of 6 pounds and their cholesterol levels improved. The study wasn't quite long enough to determine the impact of a plant-based diet on actual kidney disease, but at least now future studies can be done on that, now knowing that it's safe to do so. That's amazing. I want to say one last thing about RLMI before we wind down, and that's that medical professionals get CMEs from many of its programs. And the reason they can do that is because the programs are certified by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which is the premier international medical society for the advancement of evidence-based lifestyle medicine to treat, reverse, and prevent chronic disease. And I'm proud to say that Dr. Barnett is among several of our past Hall of Famers who have been intricately involved with the ACLM from its inception. He's a former ACLM board member. I'm going to start our wind down with a story. This is Dr. Terry Graf, who I think is here. Where is Dr. Terry Graf? There she is. There's Dr. Terry Graf. Dr. Terry Graf is a Rochester area family physician, and back in the 90s, she was working at Thompson Hospital in Canandaigua, New York, where Ted was director of radiology. By the way, this is a more recent picture of Dr. Graf. It's not from back then. Dr. Graf explained to me that back in those days, back in the 90s, if a doctor wanted to see an x-ray on a patient that they were seeing in the hospital, they had to actually physically go to the radiology department and have the radiologist go over the x-ray with them. So Dr. Graf had to go to Ted's office for x-ray readings. That's how they met. And when she was in Dr. Barnett's office, she noticed a bunch of stuff about plant-based eating. And she also saw a lot about birds, which she says you would totally expect to see if you've known Ted for longer than 10 seconds. Anyway, during one of those visits, Dr. Barnett told her all about the health benefits of a plant-based diet, and she dismissed it, because surely she would have learned about that in medical school or in residency if the claims were valid, right? Well, fast forward to 2013, and many medical issues later, Carrie watched the film Forks Over Knives, and her first thought was, these doctors are just as crazy as that Ted Barnett guy. But she decided to do some research, and she quickly realized that Dr. Barnett and the Forks Over Knives guys, try to say that 5 times fast, which is T. Colin Campbell and Caldwell Esselstyn and Neil Barnard and John McDougall, who all appear in the film, she realized that they all actually knew what they were talking about. So she started a whole foods plant-based diet, and in her words, her medical problems evaporated. She writes in her book, 4-Leaf Guide to Vibrant Health, "It took me 44 years, 7 abdominal surgeries, infertility, an episode of pulmonary edema, 22 years of depression, treatment for hypothyroidism and reflux, and developing prediabetes and more before becoming vegan, and it took me less than 3 months to reclaim my health." And here is a before and after picture of her. Dr. Graf is now RLMI's medical director, and she says that Ted and Carol completely transformed her life personally by giving her back her health, and professionally, saying that once you know how well lifestyle medicine and whole foods plant-based diets work to prevent and reverse disease, it's impossible to practice medicine the same way ever again. Dispensing medications and sending patients for procedures without addressing the underlying cause feels like malpractice. Carol and Ted are a team. He takes the spotlight, lecturing for RLMI and at national medical events and as guests on podcasts, while she prefers to work behind the scenes and is the heart of RLMI's growing community. She combines her expertise in plant-based nutrition and cooking and writing to support every single aspect of the Institute's work, from developing educational curricula to answering countless questions from the public to content creation and recipe development. The two of them are on the RLMI board, Ted as the board chair and RLMI founding president, and Carol as board secretary treasurer. And they still run the Rochester Area Vegan Society. When Carol isn't writing or cooking, she's heavily involved in town governance and green space protection, most recently as a founding member of the Rush Recreation Park Association. She's a serious connoisseur of mystery novels and word games, and she absolutely loves cats, so much so that she takes in strays and finds home for strays. I heard that you actually had up to 17 cats at once. Is that the number, or maybe more, maybe less? She's also, and she's also very active with Trap, Neuter, Return. And Ted continues to work as a partner and interventional and diagnostic radiologist at Borg and Ide Imaging, and he took a sabbatical a few years back to work on a congressional campaign. He also participates in various projects, such as the Kickstart Your Health Rochester campaign that he did with PCRM in 2016. During Ted's off time, he's into cycling and walking and running and gardening and birding, using as little fossil fuels as possible, something called green birding. And he says that one of his greatest goals is to see how many species he can see in 24 hours without burning any fossil fuels at all. And his record so far is 75 species in 24 hours. Is that still the record? Okay. And he regularly submits his data to the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. Ted and Carol are super close with their kids, just as they've always been. And everyone in the family is musical. Anyone who's been coming to the Summerfest for many years, especially those of us who are like the old timers, know that their kids basically grew up here, and Rebecca is here tonight, which is really exciting. But for years, we saw all three of their kids here, and it's just an amazing thing. You know, I met Ted and Carol back at their first, this is where I have to keep myself from crying, but I met them back at their first Summerfest in 1995, and I've spent time with them here at the Summerfest every year since then, and I'm proud to call them my friends. You're wonderful, warm, humble, loving people. And I know everybody here that knows you feels the same way. Here's a Wendell Berry quote that Carol and Ted sometimes refer to. And that quote is, "Be joyful, though you've considered all the facts." And I think that this means choosing joy and maintaining inner peace, no matter what is going on around us. So even though we know how hard things might be in the world, we can still choose to live life with gratitude, laughter, love, and even wonder. Carol says that it's not always easy to do that because of all the pain and suffering in the world. But we can choose not to internalize that pain. We can choose to embody health and happiness as much as we possibly can. We can be what we want to see in the world. And it's not just to have a better life. It's also because it's the best way to present veganism as an ideal. And it's the best way to prevent burnout so that we can continue to effectively live and work to promote health, life, and peace in the world. Carol and Ted, Mrs. Vegan and Dr. Veggie. Your life's work is massive. And you know what? I'm not so sure that you always get the recognition you deserve, but that ends tonight. Welcome to the NAVS Hall of Fame, and please come on up here to get your award. Carol and Ted Barnett, you are so wonderful, and this is such an honor to be able to present this to you. On behalf of the board of NAVS, welcome to the Hall of Fame. The world is such a better place because you're in it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be careful, there's broken glass. And you can come on up and say a few words.
I want to say a few words before I lose my nerve. Can you hear me? So, we all want a vegan world. We want it for the animals, we want it for people, and we want it for the planet. And veganism does that. It protects all those things. It does everything that's important and everything that matters. So why wouldn't we spend all our time working on that? But the thing is, we all do that. You all do that too. So thank you. And I love you all.
So that's a tough act to follow. In fact, I know it's I'm not going to come up to that. But I just want to, at the very beginning of the presentation, Mary Beth mentioned that we performed an experiment on our children back in 1991. We became vegan. So Rebecca, we never told you this, but there's a control group. And they're up there. Just kidding. I don't even know where to start. This is being connected to NAVS and Vegan Summerfest has been transformative for me. I know Carol said the same. It's absolutely true for all of us. NAVS has really given us our voice, I would say. Coming here in 1995, I kind of thought pretty much the people we were meeting were crazy, right? And well, we soon became them. So it doesn't take too long to realize that part of being crazy is not fitting in really well in the way our culture has evolved. But I don't even know where to start. Thanks to Mary Beth, thanks to the Grafs, and all the people who were in the Hall of Fame before us. Dr. Clapper's out there, Dr. Barnard. And there's Victoria Moran. I'm going to leave out somebody who's in the Hall of Fame, so I better stop there. But I don't know, what else should I say? Yeah. Our kids grew up here. They all are out there, helping to veganize the world, and we're so grateful that Rebecca was able to come. And Dr. Graf is down here. She's our medical director now at Rochester Lifestyle Medicine Institute, and Kim Taylor is our head coach and runs the Jumpstart program. And both of them actually have been with us since really 2015 or 2016, really since we first got started. And I won't bore you with any more details because this has been a pretty long presentation, thanks to Mary Beth. So thank you all. We appreciate it.